Hi, my name is Zara Villani, and I'm the Director of Advancement and Communications at Hillfield Strathallan College. Today I will be talking to you about how we engage our faculty, students, and donors through images and stories through our David Tutty Join Innovation Fund. So for the presentation today, I will go over the overview of the actual fund and how we decided to create this fund. And then we'll briefly go into the branding and communications, and in detail we'll discuss the case for support, our photography, our supportive materials, fundraising materials, and our impact reports. And finally, I will then go through the challenges that we've had with this fund, but also for the future of the fund. The David Tutty Join Innovation Fund was launched in 2015 as a way to celebrate and honor the life of a much-loved community member, David Tutty. He passed away in 2014, and the purpose of this fund was to carry forward the qualities that made David special and to promote innovation, responsibility, and real-world skills. The college invited students, faculty, and staff to apply to the fund with their creative and innovative ideas on how to enrich the HSE learning environment. All the projects that were submitted, the idea was to have them capture the spirit of the college's mission, which is learn with joy and live with purpose. Prior to the launch of the fund, HSE's head of college personally asked our faculty, staff, and students to share feedback on what they would do if they had the funds to pursue an innovative idea, one that would foster a joy of learning or deepen student engagement. Responses were overwhelming and phenomenal, and they ranged from an international online streamed radio station to a 3D printer to a makerspace and digital creation station. And based on the diversity of these ideas presented and the creativity expressed, it was decided that the marketing of the David Tutty Join Innovation Fund needed to accomplish three things. The first thing was to capture the spirit of the fund, which was imagination, curiosity, and innovation. The second was to generate excitement amongst constituents. And the third was to inspire the HSE community to support the fund through donations and applications. For our branding and communications, we spent about, I would say, between $5,000 to $7,000 for all our design costs, our original photography, printing, postage, our banners, flyers, the hard copies of the case, and also the videos that we produced. So we had the case for support, our supporting materials to support the case for support, as well as to get our students and faculty to submit projects for this fund. And then we obviously had our fundraising materials to get our donors engaged and involved to support this fund. And then we followed up with impact reports to our donors to give them an update on the projects that were selected. For our case for support, this was basically our primary marketing tool that was used in the promotion of the fund. It was emailed to the entire HSE community as the focus of the 2015 spring annual campaign mailing, and hard copies were also mailed to a select group of donors and prospects. The David Tutty Join Innovation Fund case for support and supporting materials were created to basically introduce David Tutty to the greater HSE community. David Tutty was our former board member's husband, and we obviously needed to introduce him to the rest of the community so everyone knew who David Tutty was, and also share the purpose, vision, and desired outcomes of the fund. As well as the supporting materials and case for support was a tool for the college's advancement department to meet with current and prospective donors. It also acted as a source of inspiration for our faculty, staff, and students that were looking to apply to the fund, and it supported the college's strategic direction related to entrepreneurship and personalized and authentic learning. I will just paste in the chat box a link to our case for support for those of you that are, it's a flip book, that are actually interested in going through the case for support. And this will give you a chance to take a look at the different areas and the images that we used in our case for support. All the materials that were used to promote the campaign were meant to elicit an emotional response and to capture the qualities of creativity and innovation through imaginative imagery and joyful aspiration language. The success of the case for support was measured in 4 ways. One was from the feedback from obviously the advancement department and the fundraisers working with trying to promote this fund to current and prospective donors, and also the amount of money that was raised for the fund. We also received quite a bit of feedback from internal stakeholders and our community members for this fund, and also the other measure was the number of applications that we actually received for this fund. Our target audience were our donors and friends of HSC, our internal stakeholders, which are our faculty, staff, and students, and obviously David Tuddy, his friends and family, and his colleagues were very involved and engaged. So our donors and friends of HSC, the fund was basically targeted at all current HSC donors, including current families, alumni, parents of alumni, faculty, staff, and community partners. Our internal stakeholders, the case for support was also targeted to potential applicants made up of both individual and joint submissions from our faculty, our staff, and students. In total, we reached over 8,000 constituents for both the print and flipping book version of our case for support. And obviously, David Tuddy's colleagues, friends, and families, his immediate family, co-workers, friends expressed interest in supporting a fund to honor his memory, and this fund really resonated with his colleagues and friends. When we were designing the case for support and all our materials, we decided to pick 7 images and also have a logo. So our 7 core images were used in marketing materials for the fund, including the case for support, our flyers, posters, and postcards, and we also created poster banners that were placed around the school. All these materials were conceived and designed in-house by our HSC Marketing Communications team, and the creative was designed basically to align with the guiding principles outlined in our college's strategic plan towards 2020. The design was basically playful, colorful, and joyful to also match with our mission and vision of the school. And the copy was written in first person to generate a personal connection to the reader. So I'll pick one of our images that we used under the stars and just talk a bit about this image so you can get a sense for, we had a lot of thought process, and we thought quite a bit with all our images and why we use them to engage our donors, our faculty, and staff members. So this image under the stars captures the very essence of the fund, the joy, excitement, and inspiration our students get from learning. It basically speaks to creativity and imagination, but also to the passion with which we engage students to pursue their interests. In this case, the student who stays up past bedtime because he or she is so immersed in their book. That was the purpose of this image. As a goal of the case for support was to visually communicate the curiosity and imagination of HSC students, each photo either spoke to our personal interest of the subject, or in the case of our younger students, was meant to represent David Tuddy's sense of humor and his whimsical spirit. The subject of Under the Stars was a grade 9 student who was very passionate about reading and books. And in 2015, he had coached the HSE Kids Literacy Quiz team to a provincial win. So Under the Stars was crafted with the specific intent to take prospective donors back to a time in their own childhood when they were curious about the world. The light of the flashlight was intended to draw attention to the expression on the subject's face, and the composition of the photo included significant white space that would allow the designer to overlay text onto the photo in the final document design. When we selected our images and had our photographer take these pictures, we made sure that we were able to use these pictures for various materials, supporting materials, and fundraising materials that I will be discussing with you further down the slide. The stars in the background of this image basically add an element of magic to the photo and give it a playful feel, honoring David's gregarious spirit. This particular image was used for our flyers, posters, and postcards, but we also used it for banners around our school to encourage our faculty and staff to apply for the fund. So basically with this fund, we did have the application process where we were trying to ensure we have enough applications for the fund, and then the other aspect was to try and reach out to our donors to get donations to support the projects that we're hoping to get funded. So just a bit about our supporting materials. We basically have created a media screen. We have TVs around our school that are in, we're basically have 4 different schools, a junior school, Montessori school, middle, and senior school, and we have TV screens in all 4 schools. So we created a media screen where I'll try and see if I can actually circle around it so you can actually see which image it is. Can everyone, I'm hoping everyone can see the yellow circle that I've done. But the first image on the left is basically our media screen that we put up on our media screens, encouraging our faculty and our students to apply for funding. And the text basically says, what if we told you we could bring the most incredible ideas to life? Apply for the David Teddy Joint Innovation Fund and your ideas could become a reality. At first, we obviously felt that we might have difficulty trying to encourage our faculty and staff and students to submit projects, but throughout our assemblies and staff meetings, our head of college and our faculty and staff were promoting this project to the school to encourage applications to come in, and the visuals for this project actually resonated with the students and the faculty, which is why we were so successful in getting the funds we needed. We also created postcards that we put out throughout the school to generate more ideas. And after the selection process, we created a certificate that we gave to all our students and our faculty members that were successful with the application process and received funding for their project, just to congratulate them and let them know that their project was successful. We decided to also create banners to encourage our faculty and students to apply for the funding as well, using the same images. And the banners were full life-size banners that we put up throughout all 4 schools and rotated them and changed the images with the same images that we have. For instance, the first image you see there has Choose Greatness, Apply Today. The next one is more of a science-based theme, Apply Today as well. And then the other one is more Dream Big, Pursue Happiness, and also has more of an athletic feel to it. So we're capturing the different areas in the school where people don't feel that only if you're in the arts department this funding would make a difference to you, or if you're in science and technology this funding will make a difference to you. For our fundraising materials, we decided to communicate the curiosity and imagination of our students. Therefore, we decided on a series of photos that would tell the story of the fund. And the 7 core images that we used were devised, each speaking to a personal interest or quality of the subject in the image. And each also spoke to a dream fulfilled, like the music student performing on a stage, or a young girl dressed as a superhero, or 2 students preparing to launch a rocket they built from scratch, or a scientist in the lab. Each photo was intended to make sure that we draw the reader in and suggest that there was a story being told. As we planned our materials, we made sure that even when I get into talking about our impact reports, we're using the same images, but also we're bringing our images to life in our videos. The additional fundraising materials we created were, we created a letterhead where we had, the image that is on the bottom left, where we had a girl who was sort of thinking, and then we had the letter for the ask to support this fund. We also created specific thank you notes, thank you cards that we sent to our donors after they donated, and we also had a tax receipt letter that was designed with the logo and all the images that we've used. And we also had banners that were not speaking only to the faculty and staff, but also to our parents and our alumni about supporting the fund. The first year we launched this was in 2015-16 year, and 9 projects were approved for funding. We had about 17 projects that had requested funding. We approved 9 projects for the first year, and the total dollars raised were about $63,675. For this fiscal year, we've approved 13 projects, and our fiscal year ends June 30th, so we're still in the process of raising more money. We're currently at about $50,000, and we probably will get to about 60 or 70 by the end of this fiscal year. With regards to the submission process, we have actually a committee that reviews all the projects that were submitted for funding, and with this committee we had the family member, so David Tuddy's wife is on the committee. We had a Parents Guild representative. We had somebody on the Alumni Association that was sitting on the committee as well. We had a faculty member, a staff member, and we also had students, our prefects that were sitting on this committee that review the applications, and as a committee the decisions are made. The meeting is held only once a year, so November every year the projects are reviewed and then they're approved, and then we support the project with the funds that we raise. The challenges that we see with the David Tuddy Joint Innovation Fund, it obviously is a highly sensitive fund because we have David Tuddy involved. And so we're just mindful that if we are trying to come up with a new idea or present something new, we do connect with the family to make sure that they're okay with the direction that we're going in. And the question I always get asked is, are you going to replicate something like this in the future? And the answer basically is no, because this is a fund that was a one-time fund, and we're hoping we can sustain it for the coming years. With regards to sustainability, I guess the trouble is we're not sure if we're going to be able to sustain this because we haven't created it as an endowed fund. So we're working on trying to market this and promote it. As the years go by, not many people will know who David Tuddy was. So how can we promote this fund as a joint innovation fund for HSE that's helping promote our mission and vision? And that's the direction we're looking at going towards, as well as trying to make sure we get more donors who can help us create an endowed fund so the fund is sustainable year over year. I will take you briefly through our case for support. I'm just going to share my screen with you. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the case for support, this was our case for support. We have the first page, obviously we try to use our logo to keep it consistent, and then we bring in our images throughout. So the first one is basically, have you dreamt up an amazing concept only to have it sit on the shelf? And HSE students have a limitless capacity for creativity and innovation. Then we tell a bit about the story of David Tutty. And the reason this is important is as the years go by, the board chair obviously is now a former board chair. When her children graduate from the school, the name will not be as known. By having this case for support and information about David Tutty, it gives our donors an idea of how this fund was established. So we put some images to make it a little bit more personal. Obviously, the family approved that we can use David Tutty's images and the family pictures in here, just to give it, that it's a reality and this is somebody that actually was really valued in the school. And then the next page, we look at, okay, how do we want our students, faculty, and staff to dream big? In our case for support, we've combined our case for support both for our donors and our faculty and staff, so our donors can actually see the process of how we got the students and faculty engaged. And then we obviously start using our different images, and the images that were selected for each of the pages were actually quite strategic and not just randomly placed in there. For instance, in this image here you see we're talking about joy, hope, curiosity, and the pursuit of happiness really are good for you. And so we have, somebody playing the violin. And then the purpose of the fund. So basically believe in something different, find your passion, and that's what we're trying to show in this image of a girl, who's curious and passionate, and at the same time is also joyful. We did try to incorporate some quotes and testimonials from students because that gives it, shows our donors that, this fund really will benefit the students in the school, and that's why they would want to give to the school. So we incorporate that into our case for support as well. And then with regards to innovation, we obviously decided to use a scientist image in there just to tie that in with that theme. And then innovation is a team sport. So we've used this image because obviously it's a team sport, shows a student in the gym, and ties that in very well. We try to keep our case for support not too long and just have more visuals versus text. And then we decided to have a frequently asked questions document, so our parents, if they do have any questions, they can look at the case for support and have all the information in here. I'll take you through the first video that we decided to do for the David Tutty Joy and Innovation Fund. And this video was basically created so that we can talk a bit about the fund and introduce the fund along with our case for support. Tara, I'm assuming everyone can see this?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All of our students and staff have so many great ideas just waiting to be realized. Please help me say yes to all of them, by donating today to the David Tuddy Joy and Innovation Fund. Thank you.
So basically, this video was a video that was used to promote the application process to our faculty and staff, and the video was showing students going into the head of college's office trying to submit ideas for their fund to hopefully have their fund approved. And then with our impact reports, which I'll talk about next, basically we had our impact reports that were sent out the first year when we had all our projects approved. So in 2015-16, we decided to do a flipping book version of our impact report, similar to our case for support. And the impact report summarized all the projects that were approved. So our first page basically talks about, the students dreamt it, they fostered it, they planned it. Now they can bring it to life. And this impact report was sent to both donors and non-donors to also educate our non-donors about this fund in the hopes that it would interest them and they would support the school. So one of the projects was our Wigwam outdoor classroom. At this point, we had not fully funded these projects, so did not have the ability to take images and put images in there to show our donors what they actually look like, but it was just more of an update. So I'll just flip through the book quickly so you get a point. You can see the different colors that we used, and we tried to stick with the 7 images that we had used, and the color palette is the same that we've used for our case for support. Further to this, we obviously had to give an update, now a visual update of what has been done. So we decided to create a video to summarize the projects that were supported. So I'll just share this video with you, and this video was sent to both donors and non-donors as well. Of course, our donors got a special message, but this is a video that is directly from the students about how these projects have made a big difference.
The David Tuddy Joy and Innovation Fund came out of obviously the tragic loss of David Tuddy a few years ago, in a way to sort of honor his legacy, but also sort of a creative way to align our strategic plan with the hopes and the dreams of some of our students and staff. It's also my pleasure today to introduce you to some of the projects that were made possible through the generosity of this fund. I think you'll see the passion and the expertise of all of our students and staff come through in these amazing projects. Let's take a look.
Well, I feel we wouldn't be where we are today without the donors. They've set such a beautiful environment for us. I see the changes that are made, like, for example, our scoreboard. It's very inspiring knowing that we have the support of the community behind us.
HSC has a large role. They've been backing me up since grade 5, like the board that's behind us. It really gives us an urge to want to continue sports throughout our whole entire life.
Hillfield Strathallan College Launchpad is a bookable space for all 4 of our schools. It is going to allow students a creative space to enable them to do some coding, some robotics, and to explore the design cycle. The Tuddy Fund has allowed us to purchase a wonderful array of toolkits.
I think it's really beneficial that students learn in an environment that they think is comfortable and where they're allowed to express themselves. So by providing the space, we're allowing students to express themselves as well as come up with ways to solve problems.
It feels really good to know that people, not just at HSC, but anywhere else, help us at school.
So this is the DesignWorks studio. I'm super excited to be here, and our school had put together that David Tuddy Joy and Innovation Fund for us, and we got some money to put this DesignWorks thing together and make it happen. And basically, we have 6 students who work as designers here. About 3 are in every single day, and we work with clients from around the Hamilton area with marketing and advertising.
I do feel very passionately about this, so the fact that I was given the funds to educate everyone on what dyslexia is, what the problems are, what needs to be done is just amazing. Through that, we've been able to increase awareness about dyslexia.
So the original people decided that we needed some fresh vegetables and plants, and just to make this look much more beautiful, and so they decided to make these raised gardens.
Being able to show people that we all work together in making them and had a lot of fun doing it.
Being able to see the final result and knowing that you've left a good mark on this school just feels amazing.
Laura and I have been involved with Me to We for a few years. It's actually been since our grade.
So that's just a brief overview of the second update. The first one was more digital, just to let our families know. And then we decided to actually bring that to life and have our students talk about how it's really made an impact, and our donations increased significantly by having this video out there and also sharing this video with our faculty and staff. We were able to get a lot more applications that were requested this year for funding. We also, with our impact reports, sent another impact report to our donors for the projects that were selected this year. And I'll just take you to that just to visually show you. So it was a little bit different than what we had done in the first update. This one was more of a PDF document that summarized all the projects, and we did also put this in our alumni magazine so all our constituents can see the updates. So this is the most recent PDF document, and obviously there are no visuals here because our students are still in the process of, we just recently purchased the drone. We're in the process of getting our ping pong tables and the ping pong club using these new tables. Our Worm Chalet is still in the process of being developed. So the next update that we will do next year will be a video similar to the first one to show how these projects have come to life. So these are just a few ideas that we had, and I guess I don't know if anyone has any questions for me because it looks like we do have some time for questions.
Questions, if you would like as well, can come through the chat box via the Ready Talk on your left-hand side of your screen, or the lines are unmuted, so if you have a question, you can feel free to pose it over the phone.
Sarah, this is Janet. I'm wondering if you had any seed money for this fund or how you actually got it launched.
So we didn't have any seed money for the fund. The ideal situation would have been to get one, I think the hopes was to get one big donor to start the fund to give us maybe $50,000 and hopefully create an endowment. But we did not get the $50,000 or the one big gift. So we basically just connected with a few families similar to how you would do a major gift campaign and asked them if they would support it, especially families on the board that were very close to the board chair and her husband. And we met with them individually and were able to get about $5,000 from a few board members, and that's how we started the process.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Any questions from those? There's nothing in the chat box, but I do have a question just in regard to the future of the campaign. Have you had any conversations with the family as to what their hopes for where it goes next are?
Yeah, so the family, I've just met with the family about 2 months ago talking about the future of the campaign. As I'm hoping we can create this as an endowment, so I think that's what we'd like to do and try and promote more the Joy and Innovation Fund part of it, but also have David Tuddy's name in there. And I think with the family, they would like to see that we obviously grow the total dollars. We're at $63,000. It will be ideal to be at $100,000. I'm in the process of trying to connect with the family to determine who had really close relations with David, so we can start the chats about an endowment and try and get at least $50,000 or $100,000. So that going forward, if we are just getting our donors for as part of our annual campaign to support this program, this money is there through the endowment, and the 4% is being dispersed from it every year as a beginning. Okay. But that's the hope. So we're hoping that we can create an endowed fund for this.
Right, to see it live on for quite some time. There is a question that has come up from the chat box. Were there any challenges communicating with the faculty? If yes, what were they and how did you address them?
Yes, there were quite a few challenges. The first challenge was they didn't really understand that, we have our operating budget. Why do you want us to request for funding when we can just use our operating funds and not have to wait for something to be approved by this fund? So we had to do a lot of educating where we talked about the difference, using your operation budget for operating types of stuff for your department, but the Joy Innovation Fund is for something that's more exciting, that you would not normally use as part of your operating budget, or you would not normally do because you don't have enough funds for it or the time and support for the project. So we had to do a lot of hand-holding for the first round, and we basically met with a few faculty members and talked to them about, wouldn't it be exciting if we had this in the school? What are your thoughts on having this kind of a project in the school? And when they were on board, we would tell them, okay, why don't you go ahead and put in this application? And as we were doing our messaging out to our faculty and staff and students, we would give examples of projects that have already been submitted, and those were the first few projects that were submitted. And I guess as faculty and staff saw that these projects are actually being submitted, we had more faculty members that thought, you know what, if money is not an issue and we want a ping pong table that we would not want to pay from our operation budget because we have one that's okay, but we don't really think ping pong is that important, maybe we can put it through this fund. So there were a few challenges, but I think for this year's application process, we actually had quite a few projects that were above and beyond, but we are also trying to make sure that we are looking at projects that are not like the Wigwam classroom or something that is different like the scoreboard. But we had one project that was for $30 that we decided, this project was put in and we do have the money for it and it does represent what the fund is, so we will go ahead and approve it.
Perfect. To the person who submitted the question, if you have a follow-up to that, feel free, you can drop it in the chat box if you'd like. She said thank you, so thank you, Zara, for that. Any other questions before we wrap up for today? Be clear. Should there be any questions, or if anybody does have anything that may come to mind, please feel free to get in touch with myself or directly with Zara. As you did see, there's a number of resources, including the impact report. Some of the links to the videos that were shown to us directly on site of the Hickville-Strathallan Island College website. So that could definitely be a chance for you to go and take a look at those visual resources again, should you so desire. Zara, any closing statements before we wrap for today?
Oh, thank you so much. And, if you can create a fund like this, it can gain momentum and excitement. It will be a great way to do it and something different than your regular head of college fund or scholarships and bursaries. It's something exciting, and it involves all our community members. I will paste in the chat box the link to the website page for the Joint Innovation Fund so you can access the materials from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing this with us. I wish it the best of luck. It is very refreshing to see some of these neat ideas that students are putting forth, and hopefully it continues to grab some momentum and some longevity. So good luck to you and your project. Thank you to everyone participating. Thank you, Zara, for being here and for sharing this with us, and thank you to our sponsor, IA, for ensuring this is available to everybody. Have a wonderful day, and hope